What if the problem is not that you are tired, but you are managing your energy completely wrong? Today we are talking about something we all feel, but rarely understand. Energy, not as a motivation, but as a system. My today's guest is Iris van Ooyen, and is a life transformation mentor and the author of Radiant, How to Have All the Energy You Need to Live a Life You Love. Her second book, where she explores the powerful idea that the lack of energy is not the real problem. It's just probably a signal. We'll dive into what's actually draining us, why willpower is not the solution, and how small shifts can completely change how you live, lead, and decide. I'm Csaba Demeter, this is ITalks Studio, and before we begin, a quick reality check. 89% of those who watch our show are not yet subscribed to this YouTube channel. So if this conversation brings you value, subscribe, stay close, and be part of it. Share with your friends maybe. Thank you. It is the easy, simple, and free way to show your support for our show. So let's begin. Thank you, Iris, for joining us for this episode.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Iris, I have to tell you that I had enjoyed absolutely reading out your book, and I had a lot of notes which I will use in the following minutes to guide the discussion and to discover more about you and the reason why you wrote this book and what is in this book. But before we go there, Iris, I want to propose you a starting point. To me, the person who's sitting there, and to those who are listening or even watching us on the YouTube channel, if we would apply everything what you will teach us today, how will our life change? That's the question.
I think you'll have more energy. You'll be more present for the things that you do. And I think you'll be happier.
Happier. Happy is an important word in your book. And you wrote about it, and it's also connected to the title. Radiant was such a nice title for that. Before we jump into the topics, I want to learn a little bit about you. Like every person, it's in a certain state in their life because they or him or her made a certain journey towards that. Like in your case, if we imagine that there are domino pieces, what are the most important domino pieces which have to be in the right space in the right moment and to fall down in order to lead you here where you are today?
Oh, I like how you're phrasing it as domino pieces. So I think the first one was doing my MBA, taking the corporate marketing job, and then getting burned out at the age of 24 for various reasons, because it's rarely one thing that makes that happen. It's not just working too hard, but it's a combination of factors. And that's what happened for me. Then finding out that I had like only 4 hours of energy per day. And a very pivotal moment is when the naturopath told me, like, you have energy for 4 hours, you do the rest on willpower. And for a moment, I felt a surge of pride. And then he said, and it's damaging your organs. And that was like a huge wake-up call. That was after the burnout. And that's when I really knew I had to get serious about what I was spending my time and energy on, how I was treating my body, where I was pushing through. Then I'd say another domino piece was discovering that I'm highly sensitive and super intuitive, and deciding to learn how to manage that, learn how to really enhance my intuition and use it as a reliable tool, reliable compass in my work, but also like in my private life. And then making that the core of my business and supporting clients with that, and seeing the changes that has made for them. And I think that's ultimately what led me to writing the book.
Yes, sir. Thank you for unpacking all this experience and your journey until here. I got my attention, for example, on page 9, you note the following: lack of energy is a symptom. It's not the original problem. Just got me wondering, what are we actually avoiding when we say, I'm just tired? Yeah, I will live through it.
Well, that's like a huge question. I think the answer can be different for anyone, because like what it is that you're avoiding depends on who you are, your personal experience, like how you're wired. But why I'm saying that energy, lack of energy, is usually a symptom and not the original problem. We think, I think we know basically that we need to take care of ourselves, that it's important to go to bed early, to eat healthy. Like we know intellectually a lot of these things, but the fact that we're not doing it and that we are contributing to this lack of our energy is because we think, like, I'm lazy if I take a break. I should be working hard, like wearing that exhaustion as a badge of honor, or to simply know that you don't feel like you deserve to take that break, or you're so perfectionistic. Like there's usually other things that make us not take good care of ourselves. And that's what's causing the problem with the energy. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I love that you phrase it that it's about energy, and it's about the fact that we must learn how to take care of yourselves. And it caught my attention the fact that you also describe in the book that at one point you got to the point that realizing that you are living on 4 hours of willpower. Why is that important to realize this, and how can we figure out for ourselves?
So I think most of us have learned that working hard is good and it's important that you do a lot of things. So we think willpower is a good thing, and that if we can muscle through, then that we should. And we forget to listen to the signals of our body. We forget to pay attention to what our body is telling us, and we get used to ignoring it. If we have a headache, we take an aspirin. If we have a cold, we take 2 aspirin, right? Like we don't slow down and think like, oh, maybe this is the second headache on a row. Maybe I'm doing a little too much. So pushing through and doing things just on willpower and on like living on adrenaline, that's the false energy that depletes our body. That's not real energy. That's for emergency situations. That's not a way of living.
But who failed on us? It's an educational problem? It's our society, culture, or ourselves? Or how we ended up in this situation, Iris?
I think it's a combination. I think in a lot of Western societies, is what I can speak for, is we're so used to pushing through, and we see that as a positive trait, right? Like, oh, I pushed through. I worked this many hours. Like I have a 60, 80 hour work week. And everyone's like, oh, good for you. Like, oh, you're really committed. And I think also the fact that we don't learn how to take care of ourselves, like growing up, but also like in education.
But how can we learn it, Iris? Because that's very important what you say. We don't learn how to, but how can we learn the alphabet in the school? We know math in the school. We learn how to tie our shoes from our parents. But how can we learn about this?
Well, I think if our parents would know about it, they would have taught us. But most people don't know, so they can't pass on the message. And I think the same goes for education. Like we're not aware of so many things. Like I remember in biology, our teacher taught us like the right posture for brushing your teeth, because you would hurt your back if you stood wrong. And that always stuck with me. And I think there's more things like that we can share, that are very valuable lessons for us moving forward to take good care of our body, not just when we're brushing our teeth.
I have to tell you that, and I was also mentioning this to you, I don't know how, but the universe got to you two in my life, and your book into my hands. Even if it's an ebook, I recommend everyone to read out your book either on the electronic version or the printed version, because sometimes I was, and I'm going through a phase when I feel that I'm all over the place, and I'm torn of that part, that project, or that project, and that project, and sometimes you just, as I was mentioning at one point, sometimes you say that I'm tired. Of course, I'm tired because I'm doing too many things, and sometimes I don't think that's a good idea to waste energy in that way. Is there a smart way, even if you're multi-project situation?
I think it's important to remember the power of breaks because when we're super busy, we usually feel like we cannot afford to take a break.
Mhm.
And we think that if we work longer hours, we get more done. And we forget that if we give ourselves the time of a good night's rest and of a proper lunch break and multiple breaks throughout the day, it's better for our brain because our brain literally needs the downtime to be fresh and sharp and creative. And like research shows that when you take a proper lunch break, you literally get more done than the colleague who keeps typing, sitting behind their computer, quickly eating a sandwich.
Mhm.
They feel like they got more done and they feel good about like, look at me being very productive and prioritizing my work. I
Mhm.
think we need to learn to prioritize breaks so that we can do a better job and so that we do not deplete ourselves because when you like drain yourselves too far it's like a battery uh, that has more trouble recharging fully and then it's like a downward spiral.
You mentioned it in your book at one point, and I really like the idea, and I would like to also bring to our conversation the fact that we should never let our batteries die out 100%. And we should just keep something there because it's easier to recharge from there. Can you unpack this idea a little bit for us?
Yes. So I always say that you need to keep 20% of your energies before like you end the day so that your body has energy to do everything it needs to be doing at night, like the cell regeneration, digestion, all the things. And it can recharge your battery so that you can wake up with 100%. But if you go to bed really depleted, then your body doesn't have the energy to do everything it needs to do to let you wake up fully rested and prepared for the next day. So you wake up with a battery of maybe 95%. And if you like keep doing this, you get used to like your maximum battery might be like 60%. And to you, you're like, of course, when I was younger, I had more energy. Now I'm older. I think it's more than that.
Mhm. But you are also recommending to monitor our energy level and especially what brings us energy or gives us energy and what consumes us from us energy.
Yes.
Can you explain that or describe a little bit that? Because I found that very important. I was trying to practice since I learned from it from your book, and it's quite challenging to do at the beginning, but gives incredible information and discovery on the path.
Yes. And I'm glad that you enjoyed that. What I would recommend when people wake up is to take a moment and if they have to score their energy level between 0 and 100, just intuitively say, like, okay, so I think my energy level is at 60. And then you drive to work, you arrive at work, and then you ask yourself, okay, so did my energy go up or down? Did it stay the same? Maybe you were stuck in traffic. Maybe you're really annoyed. Maybe you arrive at work with 50. Then you have a very inspiring meeting with a colleague, and then you realize at the end of the meeting, your energy went up. But maybe you had a very annoying meeting or a very straining task, and then you realize that by the time it's lunch, your energy's at 40. So if you consciously ask yourself, like, what's giving me energy? What's draining my energy? And start to monitoring that over at least a week, ideally two. Um, my experiences and my experience with my clients is that you start to see patterns that you aren't always aware of yourself that are really helpful. Because you might suddenly notice, like, oh, every time I speak to so and so, my energy goes up
Mm.
or down. Or when I go to this certain place, I always end up being drained. So
Mhm.
you can be smarter about like how much time you spend at a certain place or with a certain person and balance
Oh.
it out, like balance the things that you do that give and cost energy.
But that's very interesting what you say. So we once we monitor and we figure out who is charging us and who is recharging us, eh? And where is our docking station? It's good to be there in order because we recharge our energy. We can consciously make choices. And I'm just following up because, for example, I just note down that one point I think in your book you mentioned that the amount of energy lost with each item might be small, but together they can make a big difference.
Yes.
And there's also a list which I really loved about what can drain our energies and how can we avoid them. How did you ended up at this discovery? And is this general, or every one of us it's more like personalized?
So I think some energy drains are very personal. Some people really like working in silence. Others prefer loud music or like a background conversation. Some people flourish in an environment where there's like they go to a coffee shop to write. I would never do that. I would prefer silence to write, or maybe like the birds in my garden or something. So some of those things are personal. But you asked, like, how did I come up with the list?
Mm-hmm.
Because I am highly sensitive, and I started paying attention first out of necessity because I was so depleted. I started noticing all the things that cost me energy and that brought me energy, not just people and places, but activities as well. Like for me, something that really recharges me is reading. Reading outside recharges me even more. Something for me that's really depleting is being around a large group of people, even more if there's like a loud noise, and then worse if it smells bad or if it's cold. So the list that you're referring to is a list from list. And like you said, they do add up. Like, is there fresh oxygen? Like sometimes people forget to open the windows, especially in the winter. They don't realize that if there's no fresh air in the room, you get tired. But it's like your brain needs the oxygen to really function well.
Thank you for pointing this out. I was at one point I was working in a project, and of course sometimes you have to, you have to make the sacrifice and work overnight on the project. And I found sometimes that listening to certain types of music makes me more active and not that more sleepy. And some musics really, even if they are very energetic, but they tire me. And you mentioned something about this also in your book, and the difference of the impact of different types of music. Maybe those who are listening to us or watching us on YouTube, they can also make use of it. What can you tell to people? What types of music should they listen and when?
Now, when I don't know when, but I'd say like the types of music. First of all, music is super personal. And what I might love, you might hate, and what might bring me energy might drain you because it's not your taste. But I think what you're referring to is what the research they did about the music from Bach. That even if you don't like the music, it like raises your frequency. So it is, for some reason, it's a unique type of music that helps. And it's not just Bach, but that's one that really performed well in that research, that elevates people's energy. So if you do need a bit of a boost, it might be worth trying listening to some Bach.
Yes, that's definitely a good source of charging or recharging yourself. Now, a very important topic which it caught me my attention, and ever since curious about it, and I will come back to you and maybe ask for a little bit more help after our podcast is aired. It's about grounding, because I heard about it, and for some strange reason, our great grandmothers also had this idea of when we were kids and in the countryside, we were sometimes not necessarily forced, but recommended to walk around in the grass without shoes or socks on it, because it's good for your health. Because my great grandmother was saying, that you connect with the nature, and that's an ancient wisdom. But there's more behind it. And can you explain it and unpack for us why it's important to do this grounding and not necessarily always walking around in the forest?
Yes. Well, first of all, I love that you were taught that by your grandmother and great grandmother. And it is ancient wisdom. Some of these things are so logical, but they get forgotten over time. So grounding is the idea that, especially when you spend a lot of time in meetings or on the phone or on the computer, like your energy goes to your head. Mm-hmm. And it's not evenly distributed over your body, and ideally it is. And grounding is a way of spreading the energy uh, like better, like not just be like in your head. Sometimes people say like, oh, I'm so in my head, and you know that that's not necessarily a good thing. But to be very centered and grounded, and the idea is to like, you can do that by walking in the grass or nature. Being outside is definitely a good way to ground, but there's also specific exercises that you can do where you really focus on your feet and on like spreading that energy, if that makes sense, spreading that energy more evenly so that you are more balanced and centered, and you're not just living up here, but the rest of your body, and then you feel like more grounded. They've done I don't that's not in the book, but like they've done exercises and you can try that. Like if you are not grounded and someone gives you like a light push, you might have to like take a step back to stay like to not fall over. If you're really grounded and someone gives you that light push, you're like, it's okay, I move back a little, but I don't have to take that step back because I am so centered that uh, yeah, that it doesn't impact you that much.
I'm just wondering, for those who are listening or watching us, and maybe they are decision makers, to a certain extent, everybody is a decision maker in our lives, whether it's in our household, at our job, or we have a small company, a mid-sized company, or a huge company, and you're the owner of or the CEO of the company, but everybody is a decision maker one way or another in our day. What happens with our decision making if, for example, we are off grounded or not grounded? What happens?
So I think it improves. And I often tell my clients, like, if there's an important meeting, an important decision, to ground themselves, make sure, because it helps you be fully present. And it's not just like running around with some thoughts in your head, but you're really fully present. And when you're fully present, it's easier to pick up on more subtle signals. It's easier to read the room. It's easier to feel connected to the people that you are having that discussion with or a conversation with. Because like you're in your body, you're not just in your head, and it's easier to tap into your intuition as you're grounded as well. So I think every decision making is enhanced by taking that pause, not forcing yourself. And it doesn't have to take long, just even if you have like a minute or 30 seconds, and you can just take like 3 deep breaths to your belly, like so not up in your chin, like you're not grounded if you're breathing.
So I take
here.
3 deep breaths.
Yeah, and then just you can feel yourself.
Okay.
And then usually you become more aware of your body, and that's also a sign that you're more grounded, like you're literally more here instead of just running circles in your head.
I love the fact that we have been very wise and intuitive persons at this show, and some topics are coming back over and over and over. And one of the topics which I can recall is the fact that we need to have a certain not necessarily pattern, not discipline, but a way of starting and ending our day. And I know that you are a fan, and like many others, you also have your own system how you start your day. How can you describe that, and why is that important? And what, for example, what does it help?
Yes, well, I don't know how much detail you'd like me to share, but I start my day with drinking some water and going outside because it's important to get some daylight, and it helps like reset your internal clock, because your body gets the sun, or even if it's cloudy, that's helpful. I do some yoga, some physical exercise, and I do some inner work, like it's either meditation or some journaling, reflection. And then I have breakfast and I start my day. And I always ground myself. I really, like I said, so important. And I ground myself every morning, every evening, and before every client session.
Is it hard to do? It's about discipline, or
the grounding, or the morning routine?
The morning routine.
I think it's mostly about discovering what works for you, because when you can see that it works, it no longer becomes about discipline, but it becomes about giving yourself permission to prioritize what you need to feel good and to function well. If you're doing something because someone told you that it was a good idea, then you probably need discipline to really do it. And you might need a little discipline in the beginning to try it out. But I would really encourage everyone to develop their own morning routine, trying things out that work for you and for the way that your morning starts. Like, do you have kids or not? Like, do they need to be at school at a certain time? That's going to like impact your morning routine. So you might want to do it either earlier or when they're gone, like whatever works. But we're all different. And also over time, my routine shifts a little because I change. So it's not about like being very rigid, but listening to your body and doing what works for you.
Thank you for explaining that. It's I found this and again this topic is coming up almost with every guest. How important to have our routines, personalized, but to have our routines before the meetings, before we start the day, and to have also like an start and an ending, to have like a whole round day for us, right? In terms of we have a morning routine, and then we have our day, and we can have our routines, what we do. You already mentioned the lunch break, for example, and that's also an important moment of our day, and definitely at the evening. Now, on page 65, you wrote something which really resonated for me, and I'm a strong believer on this, but I want to have your understanding on this and to understand how you, what do you understand by saying that self-care is not selfish? You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
So a lot of people feel like self-care is something that they do when they have time left over because they have this to-do list and they have responsibilities and priorities, and that comes first. I think that's the wrong order, because literally you can't pour from an empty cup. If you're exhausted, you obviously don't have as much energy. You're not going to be as productive. Research shows it's going to impact your creativity, but you're also not going to be as pleasant to be around, right? Like if you're exhausted, you're going to be more easily irritated. You're not going to be the most pleasant colleague or partner. So I think everything benefits when you prioritize self-care. So it's not selfish. It's not even just smart. I think it's a requirement for you to do the best job, be the best boss, colleague, parent, spouse, friend.
Mm-hmm. And being an empty cup, it also is being an empty energy cup also.
Yes.
And you mentioned the fact that once we can shift our energy and we can change things in our lives, and that's pretty simple to say. Some would argue, but hard to do. How can we make these shifts in our lives, Iris? What do you see?
To have more energy?
Yes.
Well, I think it starts by becoming aware of what drains your energy, and then having a look at what that is and seeing like, if it's really required, or is there a way that you can make it less draining or more enjoyable? When you map out the things that you do throughout the day and the week that you enjoy and don't enjoy, and then distinguish between what's really necessary or what's maybe just a habit. And then finding ways to, if it's not really needed, to change or get rid of it, or to find a way that you can make an enjoyable task a little more enjoyable and a little less draining. Like there's so many things, because it's not just about your energy. It's also about like, what do you believe about why you need to be doing things? Sometimes people tell me, oh, but I can't change that. And that's because they have the hidden unconscious belief that if they stop doing that, their life will fall apart. And it rarely does, but that's what they believe. So they'll never touch it. And they'll just keep doing that they'll just keep doing that and keep feeling miserable, and it will only drain them further. So I think taking an honest assessment of what you are doing in your personal life, in your professional life. I think we need to take inventory at least once a year. Look at like our relationships, our friendships, our professional life, and look at like what can we do better? What's no longer fulfilling me? What's draining me? And then sometimes it's not an easy decision to change things, but I think like life's too short to be miserable. So why not have a good look at what you can do to be happier and to love your life more?
Yes, that has to be something about going outside of your comfort zone. And the reason why I'm asking you, I remember that in the 1990 to 2022, I was working for an NGO, Outward Bound. It still exists in Romania and all over the world. It's about experiential learning. We learn from experience, and the students and those who participate in an outdoor events usually, they learn from experience. And I was astonished to learn that the Australian Outward Bound were having 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months projects where people would enroll and they would go on a sailing boat, and they have this literally life-changing experience. Like in 6 months, you kind of experience things, not like in 1 day or 2 day or 2 hour session, right? Now, and I was talking with the head instructor, like, who can afford to go for 6 months? And he looked into my eye, and I still remember that iris, and he said, who really wants to change? That will make the time.
Yeah, that gives me chills. Yes.
Yes, and that hit me very well. And sometimes I try to do in my way, but it's not easy, as you said, sometimes to make those hard decisions and what to not to throw out or leave it, but prioritizing, because as I said, our lives can be very busy.
Yeah. And often business is an excuse to not make a change, because it's so easy to go from day to day to day, and before you know it, a month has gone by. Like if you wait to make a change until you have time, that'll never happen. And that's why, unfortunately, so many people wait for a wake-up call to really start and change things. And my wish is that people start changing before that dreaded wake-up call comes.
Not to hit the rock bottom, huh?
Yeah.
I like that. I'm not sure that that's your general mission, but I read in your book at one point, I don't remember the page, but it's that you mentioned at one point that you realized that your mission is to help raise the vibration of the planet so more people can live from love.
Yes.
How important is for you that you really are part of something bigger, not just yourself, your friends, your close friends, your relatives, maybe, as this sense of being part of a greater purpose, maybe?
I think it's really important, because that's what like helps us keep going, even if there like may not be the confirmation that you're looking for every day, but knowing that you're doing something that you feel is valuable and is going to help people. Because I believe, like, if everyone lives a life they love, the world's going to be a better place. If everyone's at home with themselves, they're going to have like less problems with each other. The world's going to be a better place if we all are true to ourselves and what we need, because then there's no need to lash out. There's no need to do all the things some people do out of pain or out of frustration that cause so many problems.
Good. Now, if somebody is feeling off or without energy, and sometimes not grounded, in a very strange way, we kind of sense that something is wrong with us. And yes, not only women have intuition, but you really follow through. We men also have intuition, but we don't follow through, and that's a bad thing. And it's good for you in some measures. But if somebody is feeling off and listening to us or watching us, what should be the first thing to do in order to recalibrate his life and to maybe change a little bit to a good direction? What would you recommend?
I think it would start by admitting that things aren't where you want them to be and that you're deciding that you're worthy to make a change and then to do what's needed to make that change possible. So talk about it with a friend, hire a coach, watch an online program, or read a book, like whatever it is that helps you with the direction that you want to be going, like whatever the problem is that's most prevalent. Start with that. If you're drained and you don't have a lot of energy, that's usually a very important first step because you're going to need energy to make a change. Mm-hmm. So then I would definitely focus there. But yeah, I think the very first step is pausing long enough to realize that you don't want to keep doing this for the rest of your life. So you're choosing something differently.
Yes, we are closing to the end of our podcast, at least from my point of view, but we can definitely keep on talking about topics. But I want to ask you, is there anything else which you would like to point out, and it's important regarding your book, Radiant, and we have not touched down on that until now?
So what comes to mind is like one of the truths that I share in the book is that which brings you the most joy is what will bring you the most. And I'm a very firm believer that that's true. Because when something is fully aligned for you and it really brings you joy, I think in the long run, that's better for everyone. So I highly encourage people to do things that bring them joy. And I know like you cannot do that 100% of the time and that's not needed, but look for ways to do more things that bring you joy because it'll give you energy, it'll light you up, it'll help you feel good, and that ripples out.
Thank you very much, Iris, for your thoughts and for really accomplishing what we started at the beginning. I was asking you if we would apply everything what you teach us during this short podcast, for example, not even reading the book out, what can we how our life would be changing? And you mentioned something there about again coming back to the joy and fulfillment and balance. So I think those who were listening to us and watching us, they already get some good ideas how to do this in their own lives. And of course, I recommend everyone to check out your book. It's a very lovely book, and it's not just a book, which I like, and thank you. But you mentioned that there are a lot of truth, and there are invitations to do things. Yes. There are exercises, and some of them are crucial and not easy to do, but changing you.
Good. Yeah. I wanted to make a practical book, a book that's not just about nice ideas, but things that you can start changing today. Mm-hmm.
Talking about book, we also have a book here, but it's not written by us. It's written by you, those guests who stop by in our studio, either in person or remote as you. And everyone leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who is going to be that guest. And the question left for you, it's the following. What is the number one question what you would love to answer, but nobody asked you?
Oh, gosh. A question no one's asked me.
Mm-hmm. Is it something, a topic which you kind of want to talk about, but didn't dare, or you need a little bit of push?
I don't know. I'm thinking. Oh, this is a tough question. I don't know who came up, who asked this question.
I can tell you.
Oh, it's secret. Oh, that's right. It's a secret question. So anyway, whoever thought of this question, it's a tough question, one I would prefer to have more time to think of, but I know that you want me to answer now. So the one thing that comes to mind is no one's ever asked me if I wanted to turn my the novel that I wrote into a movie.
And why is that important for you? Would you like to turn your novel into a movie, Iris?
I would. First of all, I think that would be so much fun. I think the process itself, right? Because I wouldn't then imagine myself being like the advisor for the film, which I think would just be a lot of fun to do. But I think there's also some important concepts in the book that are like akin to some of the things that I talk about in Radiant. About it's about like learning to become yourself and learning to value who you are, especially when you're different than the people around you. And I think that would be a great to be able to take in for like especially kids as well, to take in through a movie. But most of all, I think it would just be a lot of fun.
It would be awesome to have a movie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we can help, ITalks Studio, we are here. we are in the media business. It is Van Boyen. Thank you very much for your time and to stopping by. And I welcome you every time when you're in Romania. Maybe we can help in that to come in person in the studio and talk about maybe your next book or why not your first movie.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'd love that.
Yeah. If people are already touched by you and they're interested to get in contact with you, how can they reach out to you and what is your website domain and so on and so on?
So my website is twobrighteyes.com, 2 with the number 2, or my name, irisvanooyen.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram, Iris Bright Eyes. And I'd love to hear from people.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Iris, for joining us, not just for the conversation, but for the clarity and to bring to so many people what we feel and don't understand maybe. Your message, I believe, Iris, it was simple, but not easy. Energy is not something we chase. It's something we learn to protect, respect, and align with. And maybe that's the real takeaway. We don't need more time, more discipline, or more pressure. We need more, I would say, awareness of how we live. Thank you for being with us and for sharing your perspective. I'm Csaba Demeter. This is the ITalks Studio. And if this conversation or the other conversation got something to you and made you to move to a certain direction, just check out to be always in contact with us. And there's an easy way to do it. Just subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much for joining us. And because the conversation are here to stay and to continue. Thank you, and we'll meet you next time.